All right, class. So if you go to content and you read through the assignment for our final assignment that we're going to be working on, it's going to be 2 plates, and they're going to be painted in a style or an inspirational kind of style of an abstract painter from the 20th century. I have a PowerPoint with some examples of some painters. This is not a time-consuming project, but it's something that you should do early on and not wait till wait until Sunday or Monday. I would say Saturday and Sunday. That's a good project. I mean, that'd be the latest I would get going on this, because it does take a while for that flat slab to dry and set up to the point where you can work on it. But I wouldn't, doing it early on would be the best, and then finishing it up, painting at the very end is fine. All right, so here, let's get started on this. They're going to be, I'd like them to be about 10 inches. I'm going to be using a paper plate, Chinette-like plate. This one's 10 inches. This finished plate is around, a little under 10 inches because it shrunk a little bit because that one's set up. So let's get through this, and I'll show you. I have one started, and I'll show you how to finish that up, and I'll have another video on painting it, which isn't really a huge job. So I'm going to take and flatten that out. They go pretty quick. I think now that you've rolled a couple slabs for the cups, it's not too difficult. These are going to be a little bit thicker slabs. So same deal. Flatten it out like that. Get that rolling pin so it's set in the middle, and I go out and in. And then you'll see, oh, it doesn't want to move anymore. Then that's the time to release it from the canvas. Sometimes I'll flip it if it looks like it needs to go the other direction. If you have some sticks, you could use a couple paint stir sticks. Or you could just freewheel it here. So I'm getting to the point where it looks pretty close to the size I need. Here's the plate. You want it to drape off the edge a little bit, but I want to cut it off just so I can see the thickness. And that's about 3/8 of an inch or so. 1/2 inch is the very thickest you want it, and I don't want to go too thin, but if it's too thick, it's a problem too. Too thin, your plates will warp in the kiln. And then you can also get other problems. It's just kind of hard to deal with when they're too thin. And if they're too thick, it's hard to get them to drape into the plate properly. They kind of want to they don't really look like a plate anymore because they can't really, there's so much thickness that you can't really see the definition of a plate. So you really need to be right around that 3/8 of an inch or so. 1/2 inch, even a quarter, 1/2 inch is too much. Let's back up here. Between 1/4 and 3/8. I'm getting a little confused here. So I'm gonna, between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch. 1/4 is the minimum 3/8 is the maximum. So now I'm taking that rib, smoothing it out a little bit, flip it over. I'm using a whiter clay here. It doesn't really matter what I'm using, but you'll be putting the slip on before you paint it. The whole idea of thinking about the abstract painter is to get you guys to go beyond, getting rid of some air bubble there, go beyond that. You know, sometimes what happens with students is that they just throw something on at the end to paint it. Don't really think about it much, but I really want you to think about it a little bit more. And the abstract movement of the late 19th, early 20th centuries, it's kind of fun to use that as a starting point to get some brush marks or whatever on there. Abstract art can be something that's somewhat recognizable or something that's totally has no reference to the real world. So it really can be a lot of things. I'm not really saying copy a painting, although that's not such, you can take a portion of a painting and interpret it your way. You know, it's really up to you. I'm not looking for some elaborate finished product here, but I'm looking for people to do something a little bit more interesting. Alright, so you've got your board. I've got what we call a bat here. I'll put my plate down like that. If I just put the clay down here, what might happen, and it will happen, is it gets this cardboard paper stuff really soggy, and this will droop, and your plate will not have a nice top edge to it. So what I think works best is to roll some little coils here and tuck them underneath that, and then give them a pinch against it, so it gives it a little support right there. It doesn't have to go completely around the circumference of the plate, just maybe every few inches do that. And I know you only have one board to work with, so you might need to find something else in addition to that board. Could be a piece of cardboard or something to rest this on, because once that plate's done, you're going to want to lift it up and move it somewhere. I think a piece of cardboard works good. Most people have that around. If you had a piece of plywood around, that would be perfect. Some sort of cookie sheet, baking sheet of some kind would work. Things like that, so what you don't want to do is, once you have your slab in here, you're not going to want to lift this up until it sits. You want that clay to set up inside the paper so it doesn't lose its shape. And it's going to take, it really depends. Give you a few guidelines here. In really humid conditions, which actually not supposed to be terribly humid this week, but really humid conditions, it could sit for like 4 hours or more. Drier conditions, you might want to check it after 2 hours, but it could even sit for as long as 4 hours, even when it's drier. Okay, because this is gonna take a while. It's different than a pot that's sitting up like your cup sitting up vertically and air's around, surrounding it, able to dry it. This is sitting flat. There's nothing, the air can only go on the top. The paper pulls some moisture out, but after a while it just kind of sits there, and eventually you're going to have to get it out of that paper mold and flip it over. So it's just some patience, and that's why I don't want people starting really late, because you'll get frustrated because it's really going to take, it won't dry on you, and you'll have this really wet piece of clay, and it won't look like a plate anymore because it'll just flatten out too much. All right, so you really, if you can get this done during the week, you're better off. So I'm taking a sponge here, a dampened sponge, not saturated, dripping wet sponge, and just pushing it into the mold, and actually go around the rim like that. That's why you want to put the coils underneath. And before you start this, and before it gets too late in the week, on Wednesday I will be at school, so I think it's not a bad idea. Check your clay inventory. If you have a third of a bag, I think you'll be fine. If you only have a little handful of clay left, you should probably get a hold of me so I can set some more clay out for you. But like I said, about a third of a bag should be just fine. I don't want people to run out of clay, and I will not be there. I'm not going to go run over there. I can't get there. On Friday through Sunday, they will not let us in the building anymore. So just like that, you can see there's not a lot of water on this sponge. I don't want to saturate this clay anyways, because it'll just take longer to dry. And I'm going to kind of hold off on using the rib until it sets up more. All right, and here's why you're going to see why you need an additional board. I'm going to leave this clay hanging off, and you'll see why. You'll see, then you can just lift it up and move it and leave it in there. You don't want to disturb it. So that's how that looks. All right. And here's the one that's been sitting up. All right, you can see it holds its shape. If you lift this up and it's moving all over and drooping and sagging, then it's too wet. But you should still be able to, I can take this edge and I can pinch it. I can make a little dent. I can wiggle it. This is perfect. All right. So usually these packages of plates come in like 15 or something, so have lots of extras. So I'm gonna put this one on here as a guide, like that, a nice new fresh one, and it'll give me a place to trim. So I'm just going to draw a line. Oh, there's my needle tool. I'm going to draw a line with this needle tool, using the plate as a guide. I'm not going to cut it, but just and then it gives me that nice line there. Then you'll take your knife and make sure you're using the sharp side of your knife to carefully cut on that line. You can use a square plate or oval plate, whatever one you want, but just make sure you get one that's a little larger. I mean, you could use this. I don't care what size plate you use, actually. You might be a little disappointed if they're too small. Hey, these are things you can actually use in your house. Your cups you can use. Make a couple plates, you can use those. We use, all our glazes are just, they're food safe. So if you want to glaze these up and use them, I think that's great. Alright, so it's still got a little, that's a little big, I think. The lip is a little, I don't know, for me it is. It's a little irregular. So one thing you can use to clean that up is this green Scotch-Brite that we used for the pinch pots. Alright, and just use that to clean up that edge. The other thing, if you wanted to make, so it could be that to clean up the edge, I think that works actually pretty well. As long as, if the clay's too wet, this isn't going to work too well. Alright, and then you'll go back with the sponge and clean up the edge. The other thing that works pretty nice, but it would require a trip to a local hardware store, is a tool called a Sureform wood file. You'll find them by all the files. This is like a replacement blade, and I just hold on to it with my hands, and it shaves off. These are great tools. They're really meant for woodworking. Or some people use it on like foam, drywall. People use it to clean up edges of drywall when they cut it. And potters use them. I think that this is one of the best tools around. So I can just refine that, not only the shape, but also the edge. And I didn't put these in your kit because I didn't want to put, 20 something files in for you to use them maybe once. So they're just some things we just decided not to put in the kit. But this works great. See that? So if you want to pick one of these up, an optional tool, you can get them at Home Depot, Menards, Ace Hardware. Menards is great because they require a mask. I think it's one of the safer places to go right now. So anyways, that's one tool, but it's also this little, I'd get a nice clean, get a nice clean Scotch-Brite, get it damp. I think you need the Scotch-Brite anyways, because it just puts a really nice, clean edge on it. So just key in this thing is patience. Let them dry. If you don't have time to paint it or finish it up, wrap it up in plastic. But it really won't take you long to roll out some slabs and get them on the plates. And then you can monitor them and come back later. I think I just finish it with the sponge like that. So this project's really about half making and half painting, because I really want the painting to be interesting. I don't want it to be an afterthought. Alright. And you can, sometimes I'll just finish them here and let them sit in the plate. Put them back in a new plate, a nice new fresh plate, and then you can put them back on the table and make sure that this bottom is flat. You can also refine this without holding on to it. You don't, this will help support it then. So it makes a pretty nice little plate. Alright, so there's your plate. Again, I'm always here for questions. Rachel as well. And have a good day. Thank you.